It's another month and another episode of Nosedive. And I have two guests for this transmission. I have my friend and former guest for two different appearances, Chester Gibs. And I also have Sebastian Graf of New Niche and scentlyspeaking. Really appreciate his writing and his insight and what he is doing with his new brand and his perspective on things. It's refreshing. So we're going to be having a discussion with both of them. We're going to take a little time to have some people join in the live broadcast. So we're going to just stick around a little bit and let some people file in. We have 7 people who are currently on the live stream watching. And now we have 8, which is excellent. Feel free to drop a message in the chat. You can share your scent of the day or scent of the night, depending upon where you are on the globe. Just say hello. If you have any questions ahead of time, we can pin them and then return to them during the discussion. I'd love to hear from you. So we'll just give a little bit more time for people to show up. So I made a decision to do one more episode of Nosedive. I originally was going to do 8. I'm going to do a 9th one. Guest to be announced, but I'll do one more in July. All right, let's take a look at the comments. We have Spaced Out 19, Tom Ford's Fougère d'Argent. Lovely choice. Thank you for sharing that, my friend. Good to see your reviews on Base Notes. All right, I think it's time that we get this started. Chester from Backstage, are you ready to join in the conversation? If you want to give a thumbs up. All right, there you go. I see you. Okay, great. All right. Hello, welcome
Hey
back.
there. Hi, Joseph. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you.
It's nice to see you too. It's wonderful to have you return. And it's great to have another conversation because I've loved the conversations that we've had in the past. And also to hear what you've been up to lately. And I'm sure some folks who are familiar with you and have enjoyed your appearances in the past would love to hear that as well. I have one more message in the chat here. Scent of the day, Eau de Gloire, cologne from Parfum de Pierre. Very nice. So tell us, what has been going on?
What's been going on?
I know it's such an open-ended question, right?
Yes. Well, like in general, or you want to know like perfume stuff, or
hey, whatever you want to share. You
Okay,
could be an open book, or you could be tight-lipped. It's up to you.
Well, I've not been traveling a lot outside of Europe the last few years, I should say. Which is nice because there's so much to see in Europe, and just returned from a trip from the Baltic states, which was really cool. I went to Tallinn, and then from there I went to Riga, and from there I went to Vilnius. So that's Estland, or Estonia in English. Yes, Estonia. Then it's Letland, I think, and then it's Lithuania. And it was funny because I was also like kind of like looking for interesting places for retailers, and it was interesting to see how the perfume scene is so different in these 3 cities that I just mentioned. So that was amazing. Like it was really big in Vilnius. I mean, there was lots to see and smell, and that was interesting. So that's one thing. I'm slowly working on my own perfumes. I would love to release some stuff of my own. But I'm a slow creator, so
I appreciate that.
Yeah,
take your time.
Yeah, I entered a contest. It was a perfumery contest, and this was in the beginning of the year, and so I had to like really rush to make a perfume, and they had like a theme, and I thought like I might not even be like a finalist in this contest. So but I'm gonna make a perfume that I want to release like no matter what, if I'm going to be a finalist or not. I just don't want them to have that in a drawer, and like in the best case nothing happens to that perfume. But So yeah, I was working on that and kind of like developing from that contest a perfume. So that's kind of interesting. And well, another nice thing is I was in Paris Perfume Week. I think it was in April. It was
Oh yeah.
yeah, it was really nice. I mean, I went mainly because it was in Paris. Because I've never been to Aix-en-Provence, I've never been to Pity, but I just love Paris. I have friends there, so I thought like Paris Perfume Week. Well, that's a match. I'm going. And it was like we were just talking about how many new brands there are out, so that was like overwhelming. It was like almost too much. You
Mm,
like take that all in, and you don't want to take it all in. It's just like too much. But like the
yeah.
nicest thing there was that I met a guy. He was like shouting out my name just as I was passing the Neo Fushimi stand. I wanted to meet that guy, but like this boy just called my name, said, "Hey, Chester, do you remember me?" And this was customer that had visited the perfumery in Amsterdam that I work at like 2 years ago. And he was 14 then, and he was with his mom. And he said, "I want to become a perfumer." And so we met again at the Paris Perfume Week, and I said, "Yeah, sure, I remember you. You said you wanted to become a perfumer." And I said, "Well, do you have perfumes with you?" And he did. So it was so really nice because I brought some of mine too, like 3 things I'm working on. Then I brought the one that I made for Sebastian, and so we went outside, had a table, and like started smelling our stuff. And people joined in and smelled with us. And I was really charmed by him. And his creations were really original. So now we are like creating, we do these sort of WhatsApp video sessions where we blend together. And this is a really, I think that's such an inspiring thing to meet young people. Can I give his name? Is that all right, Joseph? So
And absolutely, as long as you
his
were
name
fairly
is
certain he would be okay.
okay. Well, his name is Billy McCallum. Super
We're
charming
connected.
guy, very talented, makes out of the box perfumes, and someone to keep an eye on. And yeah, I think it's really. I'm happy to be like working with him, and yeah, so that's a nice thing that I got from Paris Perfume Week, like meeting nice people, and especially someone who's so enthusiastic, has like a very original way of creating perfume, self-taught. So I think that was good. Yeah. So
That's great.
that
Sounds like we have a prodigy on our hands here, a young one. That makes me enthusiastic when somebody is young and they're already diving right into it, and you see that talent and it's being nurtured early on. It just makes it exciting to think about like where they would be as they mature and over the years and all the accomplishments they'll make. We're connected on Instagram, so I
oh
think
well. You should
so.
give him a shout out. He's really
Yeah.
his perfumes are truly amazing.
I would love to experience them. Agar Wal Rahul 19, lovely to have you here. Thank you. Well, I think it's about time maybe that we bring in our other guest, our friend who is waiting patiently backstage. We have Sebastian Graf. I'm going to bring him in. So everybody, please welcome Sebastian. There we go. Hi.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. So, how did the two of you meet and come? How did you form this collaboration? I'd love to hear the story.
Sure. So it started very similar to the occasion that we are having here. So it was a genuine, very nice interview that I had. And in order
Mhm.
to elaborate a little bit on that, I am writing the scentlyspeaking newsletter. That is one of the most read independent newsletters in the world, according to BF, the platform I'm running it on. And I lost in 2019 my heart to independent perfumers because I was searching for truth in perfumery. And when I went to Essence for the first time in 2019 and for the first time also got in contact with independent perfumers, it directly, hit. And I was pondering for a couple of years, okay, how do I actually get involved? And then I thought, okay, let me put myself into the shoes of a student of perfumery, more specifically independent perfumery, and let's start what I learned, developing that into a newsletter. And I think Chester was my, and I conducted some interviews with independent perfumers all around the world. And I think Chester was my guest number 6 or 7. And it was so nice because that was at the time when the Anindria collection came out, where Chester released one of the first 5 fragrances. And I think by now there are 6 fragrances out. And when I smelled Walk With Me, it was a clear 10 out of 10. It was not love at the first sight, but at the second sight. But that is really what I appreciate, about amazing fragrances. Yeah, and then we had a chat for about an hour, and based on my love for Walk With Me, and also the fact how Chester tries to funnel his view of life into fragrances, was really exceptional. That it was very clear whenever I'm going to launch a brand or a fragrance, that Chester is definitely my number one. And then it took some time till I made the decision to go for a new niche, which I'm doing right now. And then I couldn't agree more with what Chester said before. So the approach of slow perfumery, I think from the very moment we decided to work together till the launch, it was about like 15 to 16 months, but it was worth every second. So this is how we basically met and worked together, and I'm still pumped about the chance to working together with Chester as my number one.
That's great. I would love for us to hear about the story behind forming your brand, because the name, I love the name. It's a bold name. It's a name that probably will ruffle some feathers too, but I like that. I like that it's making a statement. So tell us, what's the story behind forming New Niche?
Sure. So honestly, a new niche is basically for me the only logical further development of scentlyspeaking. So when writing a newsletter with more than 4,000 active subscribers, I received more than 1,000 emails of people with very genuine and lovely questions. And what I realized from these questions and conversations is that it was rarely about any kind of blend or flanker or whatsoever, but these were like very human interactions. So there was Christy from the US reaching out, who asked me, well, my husband died and there is only little left in the bottle, and it reminds me of him, what is actually possible. Or there is Wazim, who's a refugee from Syria, from Damascus, and he has basically his old memories of Damascus, and is trying to cope with the horrible war that has been taking place there. So everything what has been in these conversations was like always very human and connected to smell, and not about brand, not about flankers, about influencers positioning themselves as gatekeepers. That I realized, okay, that on the that is one aspect on the demand side, and at the same side, on the other side, on the supply side, I realized when I lost my heart to independent perfumers, that these creators are always like wearing 20 hats and can barely make a living, and the industry is not, and it's not really made for them. That I thought, okay, I need to establish a platform that brings basically together these two streams. And then I thought, okay, what could it be? I was always inspired by the great work that Mr. Frederick Mull has done, being the publisher and curator of the best perfumers in the world. And I thought, okay, this is actually a great model, but I'm not aiming for the best perfumers in the world, because they are staff perfumers and you never have the chance as a small brand to approach them, because you rather speak with marketing instead of talking to a Quentin Bish. That I thought, okay, it really needs that kind of model for independent perfumers. So basically, my big, hairy, audacious goal is to be the Frederick Malle of independent perfumery, and I will be successful with also the community of a couple of thousand people in the back, when in 5 to 7 years' time, people will go to a perfumery and not asking for the next Gucci or the next whatever, but going to perfumery and asking for a Chester Gibs perfume, because Chester and other independent creators will be on the same level as musicians or painters. So that is like what is keeping me awake at night, what I'm completely obsessed with. And you ask about like the name, it's quite consciously decided to go for a new niche. So before, I had the idea of calling it Combray with a K, not like the French Combray, inspired by Proust, by the Madeleine effect, which is happening in the city of Combray. So that was the original idea, until I figured out that there is a cosmetics brand in the Netherlands called Combray, so you could never trademark that. And I thought, okay, I need to have something more bold. And then I don't know, like out of a sudden it really hit me when I thought, okay, I have such a vivid imagination and picture how the future should be. Everyone is talking about niche is dead, long live niche, and all that stuff. And I thought, like, I don't want to participate in that conversation, but as I have this like very vivid imagination how the future should be, I'm going to fill the new niche on my terms, how I see the vision. And this is basically what I'm acting upon, and hope to fill it with even more life than only one fragrance that is in the line right now. So we are working on a second one, also with an independent perfumer, and hopefully many more to come. Yeah, so that is how I got here.
Great. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that background story. Yeah, and that brings me to the question of niche as defined in commercial perfume, because I've been aware of the term for it's been in use for at least 15 years. And I remember when I first started hearing niche, it wasn't the definition that it would come to be in the years that followed. I was aware of niche as being something that was not necessarily targeted to a mass market or targeted to a mainstream audience. It was really perfume that was for those who would love something that is outside of that mainstream. So I would go into the department stores and I would experience the Serge Lutens and the Frederick Malle and even Comme des Garçons, which will bring me to the other weird evolving of the definition in a moment. And they were considered niche because they were not targeted to your middle of the road consumer who just wanted, a very straightforward, accessible, functional kind of like fragrance to wear every day. It was for those who really wanted a signature or signatures. And it's changed. When you're looking at the definition of niche, it means a very specific segment, a very specialized segment. And in the past 15, 16, 17 years, and with the burgeoning of the online fragrance culture, because it's changed so much, I've heard strange definitions of niche, as in niche as opposed to designer, which I always thought was kind of weird, because a designer brand can have niche fragrance releases. And I'd get into these debates with people like, is that really the distinction? Because, I bring up Comme des Garçons. Comme des Garçons, a lot of their fragrances are not mainstream whatsoever. And it is a designer house. But I wouldn't consider that mutually, I wouldn't consider it a distinction from niche. And I've seen that change. And the sort of like the reductionist view of what a niche fragrance is. And I wanted to ask both of you, and I'll start with Jester. Jester, sorry, you're not a Chester. Jester. I'll start with Chester,
All
and
right,
ask.
just
You can be a jester sometimes. So can I. But Chester, I want to get your take on like what has happened to that term. Like, what did it used to mean, and how has that changed over the past decade or two?
wow. That's a few questions in one.
Yes,
Uh,
I know. I have a tendency to do that.
what does that mean? Well, let me start by when I first heard about niche perfumes. This was, I think, around 2010 or 2011.
Mhm.
There were just a few shops in the Netherlands that sold niche perfumes and actually used the term in their webpage. And um, they didn't really explain it that much, but they were like smaller brands and more focused towards, let's say, specific um, tastes in fragrance that weren't necessarily catered to by big companies. And then, of course, you had those brands that presented themselves as, okay, we don't have clear briefs, like the perfumer has the freedom to create what they want, so they can use more materials that maybe are a little bit more expensive or not very often used. Um, so, for me personally, what I liked about niche perfumes that I didn't find so much in mainstream perfumes, or at least in the ones that were presented to me as when I enter like a perfume store, was that they kind of catered to different moods, different lifestyles. So you could have something like really, really smoky that's, or something really like burns, that in your perception of what a perfume is, that wouldn't fit that perception. It's like if I would compare it to art, it's like when people say, and oh, and you call that art. So I mean, like, people have this perception based on all kinds of assumptions,
Hmm.
where you grew up, what you've been taught about what something is supposed to look like, sound like, or smell like.
Hmm.
And like a perfume should be pleasing or it should be seductive. And a lot of niche perfumes weren't necessarily that, or if they were, they would take it a little further, like a musk tonkan, for instance.
Right.
Could call that racy, skanky, seductive. Yeah, you can call it many things, but it's not something. Still, that perfume is not something you would find like in mainstream perfume brands. And having said that, if you look nowadays, I find that you get this crossover where a lot of mainstream brands will have like their own exclusive brand, which
Hmm.
usually looks like a lot of niche perfumes. Then you have a lot of perfume brands that are sort of in between niche and mainstream, the way they position themselves. And then you have niche brands that are starting to put out perfumes that smell like really popular niche perfumes, or like
Right.
have like, because there's, I mean, you can have you can loathe these brands that only do dupes, and you can say all what you want about them. I have my opinions about them too, but even if you look within sort of the existing brands, whether they are mainstream or niche, they're kind of like copying also uh,
Right.
at least something that is popular. So I found that this small territory that we had and called niche, it's blurred a little bit. And I would even go as far as to say that if you're looking for something niche, you can go into, of course, a niche perfume shop. But if you like, I mean, I have in front of me like Youth Do, Amber Nude, and the original Youth Do. I think by
Mhm.
today's standards, they're kind of nichey. I mean, you know,
Right.
like
In today's, yeah.
yeah, I
Into
mean, so
yeah.
yeah, so I think that it's very interesting to see how this blurs. And I find a very interesting development that you see now is that a lot of um, you could call it micro niche, or I would prefer to call it personal perfuming, is like people that just start producing small batches of something that means something to them. And maybe they first start out with selling it to friends, and then they will have like a bigger batch. And um, I think there's a market for that too, for these really, really small brands. I wouldn't call it niche. I don't know what to call that, but there's definitely, I think, people want to smell unique.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they also want to smell like something that they get compliments on, or that they have, that they recognize. So,
Right.
and it's a very personal journey. There's no wrong or right. I mean, does that answer your question a little bit? Because that was a lot of information. I'm not
No,
sure.
I think it does. I think you covered a lot of it, and also highlighting how that term has changed as far as commercially, where now it's not easy to really make the distinction between a fragrance that is labeled as niche just by smelling it, because you could smell something from a certain house that people regard as niche because it isn't, you know, a large perfume brand or a designer perfume brand, but you'll smell it and you really wouldn't be able to distinguish it from something that would be, you know, released by Givenchy or something like that. So it's funny how it's changed. You know, I don't really want to, you know, target certain brands, but there are some where it's really in question whether or not they are offering an alternative, or they're just relying on marketing and the a presence of something that's different, but still employing the same kind of very, you know, mainstream sort of compositions. They're just sort of
Yeah,
gussied up in fancier bottles, or they have very kitschy or sort of tongue-in-cheek names. I've seen that as well. So a lot of it has to do with just like the marketing of it than actually what goes into the bottle. And I think that's the biggest thing that I've noticed in the past, you know, several years, is that shift where it's like, is it really niche when it's something that pretty much like you're not really offering something any different except for charging more and putting it in a fancier bottle. Sebastian, I wanted to get your take on it. How have you regarded this term niche, and how it may have changed since it was put into use as far as perfume?
Right. So honestly speaking, I'm also not too deep into perfumery, and also not for such a long time as Chester is. Even though I everything started when I was 6 and other kids were collecting or playing with dinosaurs, and I had a soap collection of 150 soaps. I think retrospectively, Lush should owe me some royalties for inventing their concept, but that's on another page. So I'm a big or let me use an analogy. I'm a big fan of underground techno and very vivid record collector. So I just love, to go to a record store and then find a vinyl from 1996 where, there were only 200 copies ever made, distributed globally, and very, very hard to get. And I think that is like where maybe niche and also underground techno is coming from. And if you're looking where we are right now, people are traveling to Ibiza and paying $20,000 for a VIP table at the primary locations. This has nothing to do with underground techno anymore, but basically, like, the source where it's coming from is not in sync anymore with the way how it's marketed. So there is, from my perspective, like an asymmetry. Be like when you're looking at the past, also with niche perfumery, you knew something, you had access to it. Some bottles were only available in certain only available in certain shops. You were that was very important. You were you were knowledgeable that these creations were available, because they were also like very challenging. They were not made for the mass market, because if you're looking at the top 10 niche fragrances of all times, they always had something distinct or edgy that became the norm later. And I think that is also like very parallel to electronic music or techno in general, because it was edgy before and you were in, and because other people saw that and thought, okay, this is so appealing to me, I also want to participate and want to have a chunk. And that is the reason why it decoupled the signal from the substance. And I think nowadays niche has become a marketing label, which is, I think, which always has like a good and bad side.
Right.
When I look at the kind of readers that are on the Scentlys Speaking newsletter, so my biggest the largest two segments are young men between 18 and 24, and ladies between 35 and 44. Which is quite surprising for me, because if I look back at the time when I was between like 18 and 24, of course, I had my first fragrances. But I think right now, if you're also looking on social media, people like especially younger boys care about what they are wearing. They educate themselves. I think, Chester, you have also confirmed that this is quite a large group of guys getting into the shop where you work. And I think this is just like the completely natural way, when something was edgy and you were in an inner circle, but it developed over time because it got attractive also to a larger group of people. It's always the case that it dilutes, and of course the people who are a little bit suffering from it are the ones that basically lived in the first moment, because they always remember how it was, because it was a little bit exclusive to them. They were like the insiders, and now they're also not the insiders anymore. And but it's very important for me to, like, new niche does not have the aim to position itself into this kind of this discussion, because I think it's like niche can mean everything, and it's completely fine whatever it means to people. So for me, it's more like I want to fill the comparably blank canvas that still exists on a new niche with life. And for me, this means new niche is independent. New niche is not about market confirmation. The fragrances that we launch are also mainly natural driven, and not so much seeking for market confirmation. But we appreciate when people give the feedback, I need to sit with the fragrance for a couple of days. I need to wear it multiple times. It's polarizing on the one day. I like it. Or so. The worst thing that can happen on a new niche is when people say, that's nice. Or, it smells like that. That is, like, for me, I think one of the worst reactions I could imagine, because either you perceive it as a cultural form where you say, okay, I need some time with it, or you say, well, it's not my cup of tea. But that's, these kind of reactions are, I think good if you are onto these new path that we are on.
I think you make a very good point. Just so you can go ahead.
Something I thought it was very funny when you said, Sebastian, like some people are like suffering from it when they were there from the start.
Nostalgia is a big thing.
Maybe like that, because if one thing is that, I like to share. So if there's a passion you can share, I think that is nice. So if people come and they say, I found this great scent, and it's something like you've smelled 1,000 times before, what gets me is that they're too enthusiastic about something they smell, which is in the end important. And I do think that I ask people if they visit the place where I work. I always ask them, how did you find us, or what made you decide to visit a niche perfume shop? And many times people say like, yeah, I felt like I wanted to go beyond the main street perfume stores and look for something special. And this is a good thing, because regardless of what their taste might be like, it means that they're open to trying new things. And what I see is, for instance, that I let them blind smell maybe 8 perfumes, and they really get triggered by one. They're like, "Oh my god, this is gross," but I can't like put it away. I like have to get. So they'll buy something which is like more public friendly, let's say. But I'll give them a sample. I'm like, it might not be for you now. Maybe it will take you a year or 2 years to appreciate it for what it is. But I think that's people being open to explore new things. That's a good thing. And also for me to share it with young people that may or may not have a notion of perfume history, because I think that can be like a bad thing. Like it's not just niche perfumes, but like um I always, I love like the classics like Mitsuko, like L'Heure Bleue, or like Chaman Nassem, what even like Chanel number 5. That's like, I mean, I studied art. There's just some art you have to have seen it or heard about it to sort of have an idea of like, to place all the current things into perspective. But then that
Right.
is my point of view. And there's nothing bad someone coming in this world sort of blank, open, and like maybe not knowing all this context, as long as they know what they smell, and like it makes them connect to what they smell, and it like connects with their feeling. I think that is like the most important thing for me. That's
Mm.
fun, and then I share my passion with them. So
I, wa- I I wanted to get back to what Sebastian was saying earlier, um, about spending time with a fragrance,
oh yeah,
even if the first impression may be sort of ambiguous or equivocal. I'm not sure if I like this. I don't know how I feel about it, but I keep wanting to smell it. So I want to just spend some time with it. And I think that's so important. And I don't think that we talk about that enough, because what I've noticed, including with myself, are a lot of people who love perfumes. Some of their most favorite perfumes are the ones where they first smelled it and they didn't know quite what to make of it. And they end up being their absolute favorites. Sometimes, if you smell something and you immediately approve of it, over time you realize that it isn't quite as exciting as you thought it was when you first smelled it. So I think there really is something to be said about that, to sort of push, how in art, visual art, push your eyes and look a little bit deeper and spend a little bit more time with what you see, and then you'll begin to take in a little bit more and understand it, or just make a connection with it. It's
yeah,
like people who get comfortable with, with art. It's the same idea with perfume, especially those who, feel a desire to understand perfumes that are out of their comfort zone. And if they take that time to be present with it, and just kind of trying to find the best term for it, but to push through those moments where they seem a little bit uncomfortable, then they'll realize that they end up developing a discernment, if you will. And that's not to say that everybody should be expected to do that. There's always going to be people who just want to smell good and go. They want to just spray and go, and that's fine too. But I think for those who really have an interest in perfume, developing that patience, I think that in the end it becomes a lot more fulfilling of an experience. So I just wanted to just piggyback on what you said, Sebastian, with that, like just spending time with it. You may find that it's something that you have like a lifelong love with, right?
I think
And
also if you spend time with a fragrance, it gets a meaning in your life. Does that
yeah,
make sense?
it
Like if you,
does. Yeah. Definitely. I think one of the tough parts of being like an A-level fragrance enthusiast who just wants to drink it all in, collect as much as possible, smell as much as possible, is that it becomes tougher, and I speak from experience, it becomes tougher to develop like a deeper relationship with certain fragrances because you never get a chance to wear it often enough. I speak from experience as one of those, pretty die-hard fragrance enthusiasts. So there's something to be said for that as well. So if someone has that restraint, they can revisit that perfume often and develop like a really close relationship with
yeah.
it. Yeah, and make memories with it, right? So, yeah, yeah. Tell us a little bit about the release. And for the people who are viewing, unfortunately, mail to my country is not easy, and I am sorry to
We
report that I
will we
haven't.
will make it work. We will make it work. I
It will
promise.
happen, and I will do a follow-up once I finally can experience it. But unfortunately, I have not yet experienced it. But I still nonetheless want to talk about this release. So if one of you want to take the lead and tell us about the first release that Chester has composed.
It needs to
Sebastian.
be. No, sorry. It's your floor. The only thing I would just want to send up front is that with new niche everyone is telling me that like the way we have just only released one fragrance, so I can only make the example here, but everyone is telling me like that is one of the most complex ways to release a fragrance because it's very like the process is very, very different, and it's all starting and this is what I deeply believe in. When I say the perfumer gets complete carte blanche, then that means that everything starts with a genuine conversation. And I'm looking for this moment which we found out in a 2-hour conversation between Chester and me. So I didn't tell him like what he should do, but I asked him about a life, and he was calling up a moment that really stuck with him, which then served as his inspiration. And I think this is like the only way if you really want to make perfumes coming from the heart of the perfumer, where the story is not just coming from a marketing brief, but which is really lived, which I deeply believe that people who are in the end are buying it, they experience that, they understand this connection that the fragrance is coming from the heart of the perfumer. And I couldn't be happier that when I had the chat with Chester and we talked for 2 hours, there was this moment when Chester called up this memory, and we both looked ourselves into the eyes and said, okay, this is the inspiration we want to make a fragrance on. And without further ado, Chester, please elaborate on your beautiful story on Bali.
Well, I had an idea about my first perfume that I created for in India, which is called Walk With Me, was for me pretty much about movement and contrast, and also like in terms of the choice for ingredients. And it was kind of nice with this perfume, if we talk about personal perfumes, that one of the notes I used in there, or ingredients I should say, because it's literally in the perfume, was kaffir lime leaf. And it's also like a little tribute to my Indonesian background from my mom's side. So when Sebastian asked me to think of an inspiration for my second perfume, I didn't think like I have to make something which has to do with my background necessarily, or my cultural background, but I felt it had to be like a way of expressing myself. Like it has to be something that came from within me. And I remember the moment when I was on holiday, and this happened to be in Indonesia, in Bali, and I was rushing from the beach, to my next appointment. And then on my way, I saw, as you see in Bali, I saw a lady, and she was arranging this this arrangement, which is an offering to the gods, and it's called a Chanang Sari. So I don't know, Joseph, or anyone who is listening and watching, if they've ever been to Bali or if they know what it looks like, but it's basically a basket made out of leaves or bamboo, and it's filled with different colors of flowers, each representing like an element, and incense. And I saw it. The lady placed it in an alleyway, and she did it so gracefully and so concentrated that it sort of like sucked me into that whole experience of her being so concentrating in arranging this challenge sari offering. And it was that moment where I forgot totally where I was going to. And so I wanted to put that moment into a fragrance. So like a moment of standing still in time. My working title for the project was Time Stood Still, because that was literally what happened when I saw her do that. And I'm sure all of us have moments in our life when we are busy with our daily things, and then we hear someone singing, or you see a beautiful bird, or something that just touches you so profoundly that you just makes you forget about time and space, and just like stands that in the perfume. So in the ingredient wise, I had to think how to do that. But since I literally I saw this Chanang Sari with the incense and flowers, I thought like, well, it has to have flowers and it has to have incense. So so I had a little bit of a direction in which I wanted this perfume to go. And it was very funny. Sebastian organized a Zoom call with some of the people from Scentlyspeaking, and we talked about this idea of reflection and standing still, and just asking, what does that mean to you? And that was really nice to have everybody's input and even suggestions for ingredients. Some of which actually ended up in the perfume. So that was nice. That's a little bit how we did it. For Sebastian and I, each time I made a new modification, we smelled it together, discussed it, until Sebastian felt it was right.
So what are some of the flowers that we would experience in the perfume?
So I have put in one of my favorite flowers. It's ylang ylang. It's such a versatile flower because it has like a fruity banana vibe. It's a little spicy. I think it's seductive. So you can go into many directions with this flower. So we have that. Then we have jasmine sambac in there. Then we have mimosa in there, which I like. It's very warm. It's sort of like it has this sort of honey facet to it. And the other one that's in there is Immortelle.
And I love Immortelle. And that's sort of an entity unto its own, because not only is it a flower, but it smells so spicy and resinous and almost like fenugreek, molasses, herbal.
It's funny. It was actually fenugreek in the formula as well at one point. We took it out. It was just too overpowering. And the Immortelle already had so much going on in the perfumes. And while I was making it, I was also like smelling in my own collection perfumes that I liked, and I was thinking, what do I have with Immortelle? And there aren't that many perfumes. So I have a very nice one. You might know Immortelle Pours by Parfum d'Empire. It's an amazing perfume, and my perfume is totally different. But that was a perfume I like kept smelling sort of while making this one, because just so I wanted to understand how this Immortelle worked in that perfume. So without those flowers, and there's also some LME in the perfume.
Oh, nice. LME resin. I love LME resin, and I feel like it doesn't get enough appreciation
Oh
because,
no,
in a way, it's often used as a modifier. It doesn't really get center stage, but what it does in the background, what it does as a supporting player, is so cool because it can bridge certain elements. Like, we're talking about a floral incense, it makes perfect sense because it can really make that connection between the flowers and the top notes and the
yeah,
incense and the dry down. Really beautiful, peppery, lemony,
yeah.
coniferous, and even a little floral element to it.
I
Oh,
think
that's really nice.
it really goes well with the incense that is in
Yeah,
the frankincense, and also with the peppers. You mentioned the peppery facets.
yeah.
One of the ingredients I used two peppers in this perfume, but one of the most important is a Bengal pepper. Have you ever smelled it, Joseph?
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's very cool that you've used that. Did you use like an
Oh,
oil of the pepper or an
um,
absolute or
CO2.
CO2? Oh, very cool.
Yeah, I smelled it. I think over 1.5 years ago for the first time while I was doing a natural perfumery course. I smelled it. I was just blown away by that material. It's such a rich, warm pepper. In my mind, at least slightly balsamic, I would say. Even has like an ambery um, feeling to it when I smell it.
Mm,
It's a pepper, and
right.
and going back to the theme of Indonesia, it's you can buy these sachets in the supermarkets which have all these spices that you can use in your food. And there's this one which has all these Bengal peppers in them. So I thought, oh,
Mm,
that's a nice ingredient, and it gives this warmth, and it's a very nice with the LME for the freshness and the pepperiness that has with the Bengal pepper. And I think it blends in really well with the flowers and with the incense.
right, right. Oh, I think it's great to have pepper to sort of how it sort of draws out certain qualities, many different types of pepper, draws out sort of those qualities in the florals and kind of makes them a little bit more three-dimensional. That's what I think is so cool in perfumery is that using these other elements that, the average layperson would not really think much of it, like, pairing these things like pepper or citruses or resins and what they do in Congress with, the main accords in a perfume to make them whole, to make them like, really three-dimensional in a way. And I think that the pepper is really cool in that respect, even if it's just like a slightest bit can really make a difference. I mean, we could also talk about like cinnamic compounds too. I mean, those are indispensable as well, but
Yeah.
I digress. Wow, very cool. This is very cool. So tell us a little bit more about the incense element as well. We know that the elemi is there. Are we looking at or are we smelling like a great deal of olibanum resin or what else is going on as far as that incense feel? Could
Well,
you tell us a
it's
little bit?
it's very funny because I think of this perfume as a spicy floral, or maybe like a spicy floral amber, even, but spicy
Yeah,
floral. It's kind of
yeah,
my how I get it. And
yeah.
but what I get back from people who've reviewed it and who wear it is how incensey this perfume is. And I never realized it because, and that's a funny thing when you create something. Well, I'm speaking for myself. Also, when I make a drawing, you're sometimes so like into the thing, and that of course sometimes you step back, and take some distance from it. But you kind of like forget how other people would look at it, or receive it when they are wearing the perfume. So I never thought of it as an incense perfume, although incense is important in this perfume because it's important in this ritual of the Chamansari. And
Mm,
so I used I made like an amber base. So there's this labdanum in there, which also
mm,
has the I wouldn't say it's incense-y, but like if you picture incense and peppers with labdanum, you already get sort of like this very nice incense-y warm base. And then I would
mm,
say pepper also adds to it. But I
right.
so used frankincense in the perfume. Then there's the alumi and the peppers. That already created this sort of incensey feeling, and then paired with the labdanum that's in there. I have to think what else. Oh, how can I forget? I put myrrh in there, of course.
Oh, we
So
would be remiss without mentioning myrrh as part of an
that
incense
was one
blend.
of the most important ingredients in the fragrance, because that's, if you take it out, it's a different perfume.
Right, right.
Yeah,
And that speaks to the power of myrrh.
yeah,
It
I love
really does. It does shift everything. It does create an effect that's unique to it as well. It can't really be reproduced in another way. I mean, and that's I have such reverence for all the resins, but myrrh, there's just
yeah,
something about it. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful stuff. I
yeah.
want
And
to draw. Oh, go ahead. Sorry, Chester. Go ahead.
go ahead, ask your questions. But I just wanted to say that what I liked about myrrh is that it's very important in rituals as well. So it's like makes sense to put it in there as well.
I just had to mute myself. I don't know if it would be picked up on my microphone, but there was a siren. It's a balmy day, and I have the
Oh my
windows open.
gosh.
So, but now I want to turn my attention to Sebastian because I've noticed you brandishing a mouillette in backstage, and yes, is that what we're discussing? Are you?
Absolutely, I wouldn't dare to smell onto another blotter than the first creation. Actually, funnily enough, we in total, I think we had 49 modifications going on. So, or at least
Oh
that was
wow!
or I think even like 50, because number 50 was like the last one. I'm not too sure, Chester, if you started at 1, because I think our collection of modifications started at 31. So I don't know what happened even before that. But what I really like is, and to be honest, it's the first time that I also went through this process, and I mean, I never really co-created from a commenter perspective, or from a reviewer perspective, in a fragrance creation process. But it was very interesting to see, and what I'm basically smelling right now was exactly the stage where Chester and me were very happy with the heart and the base, and we thought, okay, there is something missing on the top, and that was the moment when we added for the first time the distilled lime as a top note ingredient, which for me made it for the very first time exactly like this kind of journey that we described before. So that was the moment when I was started wearing it a couple of times, when my skin chemistry reacted based on the temperature, based on the weather, very, very differently. And that was like the moment when it really, I mean, from the very first moment, it hit my heart, because I knew where it was coming from. But that was the moment where I thought, okay, now this is like very, very complete, because it is true. Like, the development is a journey of a fragrance is a journey, but also that was the moment when we added the distilled lime, that I thought, okay, it is like a symphony, because even like now it's spring, it's getting warmer, and now the vibe that I get when I spray it on my skin, it's very, very different to what when I'm wearing it in autumn or winter times. And this is what I appreciate so much about it. So it's always like a book where I have read some pages before in the book, but it's always, a new story that I get from it. And that's the reason why I'm also so, I mean, no intention to promote it in any kind of way, but that is like why I'm so, why I can't stop smelling it, because it's always it always shows you new facets, and it's very, very versatile. I also assume because of the high degree of naturals with a lot of volatile organic compounds that move very different according to skin chemistry and temperature. And that is and that is, I think, number 42, where it was the moment that we added the distilled lime, and I thought, okay, now we are very close to finish.
Very nice. Very nice. We have a comment here. Before the World Moved Again is very original and has a lot of soul. It's so unique and instantly recognizable that one can spot it within multiple blotters. Very nice. I'm pining over the fact that I cannot experience it.
We will manage it, even if I need to fly into the US, which I haven't done for the last 8 years. I make sure you will get it in the next weeks.
Okay.
Promise.
Well, a lot of our viewers are from North America, US, and Canada. Would there be the possibility of having distribution here, or would they be able to order from overseas? Have you had luck with that? Let's hear about that. Because
so I'm doing my best. So
yeah, I understand.
but probably not from uniche.com, which is my domain, but probably it's finding. So I'm right now in conversation with overseas retailers based in Europe that also ship very reliably to the US. That is one option, and then there is another option which might even be like physical retail in East Coast, in one of the biggest cities in the world, but I can't. I'm in negotiations how it's going. So hopefully till the end of the year we will have, or in the next 3 months we will have a solution.
Good.
Yeah.
And rest assured, we do have plenty of people who tune in who are in Europe as well. So it will be easier enough for them to access it, and we do hope that we'll be able to experience it here over the pond, because it does sound beautiful. I'm very excited to finally experience it. I have a question for you, Sebastian. As far as like your taste in perfume, what are some of your favorite notes or styles of perfume generally, besides obviously a floral incense, a spicy floral incense?
Yeah. I think in my general fragrance appreciation life cycle, I think I've arrived at the stage where I can finally distinguish certain notes, or at least certain fragrance families. I really need to confess I'm not this kind of person who's going to a niche store and is trying to deconstruct the fragrance and trying to like come up with 10 notes that I identify. So for me, it's I mean, I can tell it's a go more like an ambery whatsoever, but I'm quite bad at detecting certain notes. Actually, my taste is quite versatile. I would say. So there's not a specific fragrance family that I'm like a big fan of, and I think that is the nice trait that came up over time. So I right now have I just recently discovered a fragrance that absolutely blew me away, where I'm very addicted on a brand, because just the quality is, for me, I've never seen that in another brand. It's Strangelove from New York. It's already on the market since I think over a decade, but I had the chance to smell them because I met Christoph Lodamiel in his lab here in Berlin. A dream came true, and I smelled I smelled Melt My Heart, which I also just like recently like got, and for me this opened like a complete new fragrance game, because the level of like how the fragrance is made is just really exceptional. So it's very hard to say specific notes or directions, but just, you know, to name a few. A big fan of LME, definitely. So one of my favorite LME fragrances is Fuego Futuro by Thomas de Monaco. Very with hay and LME, yeah, a very nice one. Then also just recently, because of Melt My Heart, I would call it grown up gourmands that have this kind of like hint of sweetness, but which does not get you in the direction of Thierry Mugler, where, you know, this kind of sweetness is always on the verge to, you know, to okay, now it gets too sweet. No, it's still very, very moderate. So this is what I appreciate lately. Very generally, ambery perfumes. So quintessential ambery by what is the Sultan Pasha perfumes. I like that one, but that is also like a preference that I have for like 10 years. Next to Dry Woods are always fine. Very recently digging into some skin perfumes, like not the very crazy ones that were trending the last 2 to 3 years, but, you know, this kind of like musky skin type perfumes that are like very like on a very in a very subtle way. Yeah, so that is just to name a few, but very generally, what I to maybe bring it onto a little bit higher level, what I just and this is also what I have now defined as the boundaries for perfumers releasing under new niche. I mean, the boundaries are quite broad, but what I'm asking now also the future perfumers to release under new niche is that I really would love to have exceptional naturals as the stars of the creation, and then supported by world-class accords and, of course, functional synthetics, you know, to elevate the natural ingredients as stars. And that only came after Chester has released the first one, but I'm really happy that with the first one that we were already going into this direction. And to be honest, I think there are rarely any kind of ingredients where I say I'm not a big fan of it, because they can always interpret it in a very nice way, you know, that they can be appreciated. So I had this situation with tuberose that for the last 2 to 3 years that I thought, oh well, tuberose is not really my cup of tea. But when I also, yeah, I mean, also from the Strange Love collection, that Dead of Night is for me like a fragrance where the tuberose is very dominant, and where I say, well, like it's just mind blowing with like 3 key natural ingredients. You know, how a person can create such a nice perfume with an ingredient where I thought, okay, it's not my cup of tea. So it's very, you know, it's very hard to say this is my preference or not my preference, because in the end, I think very much boils down how the composition is intended to be made.
I think you bring up a great point in perfume as far as, for example, tuberose. With any kind of note in perfume or an accord, it can be pulled in so many different directions, where at first you might not think that you like a certain flower in a perfume, but then a perfumer will take that concept and they'll mold it in a different way, or highlight certain things that are not typically highlighted in a perfume. And I think tuberose is an excellent example of that, because it could go in the very, camphorous, mentholated kind of direction, which I'm partial to. I kind of like that, but I understand how some people may not. or it could be, the very sweeter, headier white floral direction, or it could be more sheer, sort of like the headspace of the flowers rather than putting your nose into them. And there's so many different things that you can do with a particular flower. And that's what I always tell people when they claim that they don't like a particular note in a perfume, that there is the distinct possibility that you might just find that one where you change your mind about it. And that seems like it's often the case with florals too. Like, I run across that with rose, with jasmine. People think that they may not like rose or jasmine, but if they're approached in just a certain way where it's a little bit drier or a little bit more saturated, if it's, more fruity or it's more smoky, all these different directions, then they find that there is the one that speaks to them. Yeah, it's very cool to think about that. Very nice. Chester, we may have talked about this in a previous live stream, but do you have an example of a note that you think that you didn't particularly appreciate until you found one that spoke to you in a certain perfume?
Oh, no, I don't think so actually, but maybe some musks. But yesterday I'm like doing a new inventory of my raw ingredients. It's kind of chaotic, and so I'm doing them, and some of them, oh, I need to smell that again. And so I found this ingredient, and I'd never opened it, and then I'm always like, why did I buy it in the first place? There must be a reason. So, and it was uchu oil. Have you smelled uchu?
What is it?
Buku?
Buku,
Is it live
Bucchu
from South Africa?
Ah, buchu or buku.
Buchu.
Oh, yeah, that's
I smelled it first. It pure. I was like disgusted. So I just I diluted it immediately, 10%, 1%, and like the more I diluted it, the nicer it got. And I actually thought, what I like, it's kind of like red fruits and sweaty, and I thought that could be that could be nice to put somewhere, this sort of like red fruity sweatiness. So I do have it when I create something, that if I find something disgusting smelling, I'm always like, that could work, because very often we are led, whether it's when you create a perfume or you buy a perfume, thing you like, but something you might not like, and you're making something, could you be more interesting to work with, because you have to fight a little harder to make it work. And so yeah, I think that's something that is interesting. If we talk about perfumes in general, not necessarily notes, my favorite perfumes in general are those that have like a push and pull effect. Like I'm like drawn to them, and there's something that puts me off, but you just like keep on smelling it, and then
right, yeah.
So I like it when there's this friction, when I smell something, when I don't like immediately agree with how it smells or how it feels, but when there's like this little tension. And
tension, exactly.
Yeah, so one perfume I always mention when we talk about these types of perfumes, where I had this, was Musk Tonken by Parfum d'Empire. When I first smelled that, I was mildly grossed out, and but the thing is, I kept going back to this perfume shop buying other perfumes, and every time asking for a sample of Musk Tonken, and it's just like I couldn't let go of it. And I think that's so rare if you have that in a perfume or in music. We were talking about music. Sometimes you can have it too. When you have music, I'm not quite sure if you hate it or not, but you have to listen to it every now and then. It's the same with Musk Tonken for me. So And to an extent, also with YouTube as well. When I
Yeah.
got my role, I was like, why was this so popular? But like, look now, it's like half empty, and I find it has a very um, I don't know. It's kind of vintage animalic for me. It probably wasn't considered animalic when it came out, but for me, when I smell this, it has something, yeah, like pissy in a nice way for me.
Great, a
Yeah,
little bit of a little bit of raunch underneath the
exactly. Yeah,
balsams and resins and stuff, like
yeah.
a little bit of dirty tolu and dirty benzoin, it's all dirtied up. I love that about youth
Love
do.
it, but it doesn't smell cheap.
No, it doesn't. Even like the current or recent ones, I don't know what the status is today at least, but recent bottles, like honestly, I tell people it does not smell too much different from vintages. If you have a good vintage and you compare it with a more recent bottle, it's like not far off at all. In fact, it's great because those top notes are so fresh too. I wanted to get back to Buchu, also known as agathosma. That is so ammoniac. That's the thing that's crazy about it. It's very ammonia-like, and it almost is like it's way more powerful than even blackcurrant. It's just
Oh,
like
it's
undiluted. It just
it's
really smells like you're putting your nose
bomb.
into like a
To get
cat
rid of your
litter.
neighbors, you just like throw that at them. It's just
But it's beautiful when you dilute it because what it kind of reminds me of are like certain plants or trees that have like waxy evergreen leaves, like boxwood. Like they give off that kind of like sharp green with that sort of facet of like berry, like unripe berry kind of smell to it. I think it's beautiful on dilution, and I'm fascinated with those materials where at 100%, it's absolutely ghastly, but then you dilute it and you understand it.
yeah, it's just beautiful. Yeah.
And I think when people are starting to learn perfume, that's like the real challenge, is trying to understand that, like, if you're going to smell that pure, you're not going to get it. You're going to have to you have to understand that these materials, they definitely, a lot of them need to be handled with care and also diluted to very low levels at time for you to understand why they're used to begin with.
Yeah.
Very cool though. And now I'm getting back to youth do too, because like I'm thinking like, if we were to look at the GCMS of youth do, what materials in there had to be diluted in order to create that effect, the effects that are in that.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I also have the Youth Do Amber Nude here. So
You know what? I actually have not experienced Amber Nude. What can you tell us about that one? I know it's been around for a while, at least maybe the 2000s or
you'd know it.
yeah. What is the comparison? Like how does the Amber Nude differ
It's
from
less
the
sticky.
original?
So it's less sticky, and it definitely has an amber base, but it's less sticky as this one is.
Yeah.
This one really is, like I said, like it's like expensive pee and like sticky, and this doesn't have that stickiness.
Yeah.
But you recognize youth do in it, definitely. But
Right,
it's
right.
less sticky. It's a little bit more on the surface, I would say. Like
It
more.
has the same DNA as some people say. I feel like that's so overused, but DNA.
Yeah.
The original DNA, but it's been softened or something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, totally. Because it was like a newer release, so they probably wanted some, like a flanker to appeal to those who may have a tough time with the original.
Oh, it's still. This is a good perfume. The Amber Nude. It's a little boozy as well.
Very nice. So I have a question as far as when we're looking at the market as it is today, and I mean, right now we have more releases, per month, per year than ever before. It's
Have a number more.
shocking.
How much is it? Do you think?
I don't recall the exact numbers, but I remember seeing a chart. And in the chart, you're looking at the beginning of the chart. You're talking about like the mid 20th century, and it's just sort of like this, and then it starts to kind of climb in the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s, and then 2000s, and it just keeps climbing. There are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of releases, just like each year for the past few years. So this is a really, saturated market. Why do you think this is happening? Why do you think we're seeing this now, in the past, 5 to 10 years?
You're asking Sebastian?
Oh yeah, maybe I should. Sebastian, you can answer.
Why I have the audacity to create another brand in a world that is very saturated.
Well, that's the question I ask everyone who has a new brand, and it's not to say you shouldn't, but what is it? You can answer that question, and then you could also, if you wanted to, add on to that what you're bringing to the table that probably is a little different than from everything else that's out there.
Sure. So I also wrote quite extensively about it. If you want to trust Fragrantica, Perfumo, base notes, there are between 8,000 to 10,000 launches recorded there per year. And if you're looking at a growth rate over the last 7 years, you basically went from 2,000 launches to 10,000 launches, which is an increase of 500% within 7 years. And if you are looking into how the buyer side looked like, you had an annual compound growth rate, a CAGR, between 7 and 10%. So yes, there is an oversaturated market, and I think that maybe 20 years ago it was sufficient to release a fragrance, even it was not good, because in the end there was enough space. But then of course it got tougher over time. And if you're looking, I'm experiencing this firsthand, even though one is releasing an amazing fragrance. This distribution is of course everything, and it's very brutal. So I think the pace at what fragrances are released at the moment is really not so sustainable. And I always say, these tourists that we have in perfumery, they always go home. So the average life cycle of a brand that came out over the last 3 to 4 years is probably also 3 to 4 years. So I'm pretty sure that about 80% will also leave the arena, that I don't know, have like the 100th version of, I don't know, like a French coastline perfume that is not really distinguishable compared to other fragrances. And you asked for the reason why we are seeing this. So first of all, I think Corona had a big effect, because people were at home and thought, okay, I need a new hobby. What can I do? At the same time, the barriers for sourcing materials went up. Then you had the composition houses that made their way to e-commerce, like at Robertet. You can easily buy the ingredients online. Even you always have this crazy surcharge for the small quantities, which is also the small quantity dilemma for specifically independent perfumers, which is one of the 20 hats independent perfumers are wearing. So yeah, I think and then of course you had this kind of content creator boom when people had, I don't know, more than 200, 300, 400, 500,000 followers, and they realized, well, I need to create a brand in order to sustain also a living for longer, what can I offer? So I can have whatever I'm standing for. I can offer fashion wear. I can maybe release a watch, but that's quite tedious. So I could easily just go to one of the composition houses, only talk with the marketing team, be never in contact with the perfumer, write a brief, and they create fragrances for me. And I think that is also the imagination that many people had, that fragrance is one of the most attractive business, because in the end you're not really paying for the juice. That is inside. So I think like all of that combined is also peaking. So I think even though if you're looking, I mean, Essence is happening right now. Even though there are constantly many more and new releases, I think we have crossed the peak or come close to the peak that I also foresee a little decline, at least in the Western world. If you're looking to North Shanghai, it's a complete different game. And I think also if you're smelling some very genuine creations coming out of China, Indonesia, I think that is where like the new creativity is living, because the brands that are doing it smart are not suffering from the colonization of scent, where basically the composition houses are sending their perfumers there. It's the same if you're looking at the top 50 restaurants in the world, and then you see like 3 white European or American dudes being listed as the top chefs in Southeast Asia, which is completely nonsense. There are some great examples that freed themselves from this colonization and that are doing some real cool stuff, and I think we are going to see this more and more. So the trend that we had with a lot of Middle Eastern brands, the whole Oriental, even we shouldn't name it Oriental, but that's on another page. Oriental fragrances is, I think, like the next frontiers, I think, happening in Asian countries, and you already see that. So I think that is my take on that.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of great stuff coming out of China, Korea, Japan. Really impressed with the work that One Day does and Epicron, those folks. There's another brand that I learned of recently from Hong Kong, Floriography. It's lovely stuff coming from that part of the world. So what about the brands that are out there that are, okay, this is the way that I want to frame this question. How can a consumer discern the difference between a brand that, and this may be a controversial subject, so you can opt out of answering this question, but I think the concern with a lot of consumers out there is there just seems to be some brands who are looking to make money beyond, rather than showing reverence towards the art and the craft and the legacy of perfume, whatever you want to say. How can those out there make how can they sniff out, no pun intended, those brands that are doing that, and rather than actually doing it for the genuine art of perfume, or the genuine tradition of perfume? I know that's a very mouthy, a very wordy question, but hopefully you understand.
That's for me, this question.
Yeah, you could do it, Chester. Sorry. Chester, you could take the floor on that one.
Well, that is difficult for a customer, but I do think that a lot, like you said, Sebastian, that a lot of young people, they're very well prepared when they start going out for fragrances. This goes beyond just having watched the TikTok video. A lot of people, they actually read up on perfume, like if they're really invested in like niche perfumery or perfumery in general. And I do think that when a brand has like a clear face behind it, a person that actually either curates the collection or better makes the perfumes. But I think that's in general, I think, a good sign. Like for instance, a brand like Papillon with Liz Moore. I love that brand. But even like brands that have been around for a longer time, like Patricia Parfum de Nicolai, Francesca Bianchi. There's a personality attached to it. I think this is always a good sign. Whereas if it's just like a brand, what I always find suspicious is a new brand that just releases like 15 fragrances. I'm like, what's this? It's
And
like,
all at once, like not
right, yeah,
staggered, just
yeah.
here's 15 of them. Yeah.
That's like a singer putting out 15 singles. That's like, let's do an album first, or I don't know. But that's something I find suspicious. But um, your question is like, how can you, as a consumer, figure out if what you're smelling or what you're supporting with your hard-earned money is just a brand that wants to make money? Um, you don't always know. I mean, like, especially if you're new to perfume or to niche perfume, and you see like this gorgeous bottle and nice marketing, and it just like looks nice and it smells nice. It's very easy to stay in your feeling and to think, oh no, I'm just like buying a product, and why is it $250? I mean, like, that's usually you can be really caught up. And like, getting back to spending time with a fragrance, what we were just talking about, I think that is a good way to at least, when you experience, see what it means to you and if it is worth the hype or the money, or whatever. But well, to summarize, I do think that if there is a clear face behind the brand, I think that's always a good sign. And like, for instance, brands like Toscovat, that are also very popular and also on TikTok, but there's like someone behind it, and they're like, in the presentation, I think it's really personal. I think, and I speak also to a lot of young perfume lovers that I meet in perfume reunions, or in the store where I work. And sure, they buy their Francisco Johns, or they buy their Orto Parisis, but then they are enthusiastic. They tell me, "Oh, I recently bought a perfume from a guy, and he's only produced 100 bottles, and like, he does the caps himself, and you can only order it with him." And then I'm like, you see, there is a lot of um, a demand for something personal, something that means something, um, and that can go perfectly hand in hand with something mainstream, average, good smelling, good looking. Yeah, that could be. I think it's a nice mix, actually. Having some fast food and having something like delicately prepared. They could be both nice, but I think
Yeah.
person behind the brand, something personal, that's good. Um, for me, that's the, how do you go about that? What do you think, Joseph or Sebastian?
Oh, well, I guess I could go and then I'll turn it over to Sebastian. I think you make a really good point. It really depends on the experience that you have with shopping for perfume, and if this is like a whole new arena for you. Everything is new and exciting, and you can be distracted by, the glitz and the shininess and the fancy bottles and the marketing, all that sort of stuff. So I think it's just a matter of following your nose. And when I say follow your nose, smell as much as you can. Just smell as much as you can and make comparisons and make distinctions, see what speaks to you, see if there seems to be integrity behind the advertising and the public relations as well. I mean, sometimes the PR is like, oh, I mean, maybe the brand itself may seem appealing, but the public relations says otherwise. So paying attention to those things can give you a clue. It may not always mean that the product isn't quality, but if the ego is put ahead of anything else, that can be a red flag. You know what I mean? So I think about that as well. And also that anonymity that could be a red flag, as you said, that it's good that there is, that you have an understanding of what the whole mission is. You could go to a website. Does it sound like it's written by a person? And that's going to bring me to my next question. And I'm not anti-AI completely, but that's going to be my next question. But you could read the text, the copy on the website. And if it sounds like there is this sincerity behind it, or there's a narrative, or there's a theme, or there is just something illustrated through that copy, then that can tell you something as well. Or, instead of something that might be generic and just mentions, like, you're the Calabrian bergamot, and that's from this distant land, and just really just emphasizing on the materials, or just emphasizing on performance, or just emphasizing a certain style without really having any kind of story or passion behind it. That's what I would probably recommend, that people look at how these brands are presenting themselves. Aspirational, often when they're aspirational, and I mean, this is a very bold opinion, it's a hot take. The more aspirational it is, the less attention there seems to be in the actual perfume itself. It's just a Veblen good is a Veblen good. Some Veblen goods, it's the whole package. But not everything is a Maserati or a Rolls Royce. Not every perfume can be, the perfume business can be really deceptive as well. So you might have this bottle that is gold, crystals, just a huge coffret, flashy marketing. But that to me is often a distraction from the lack of attention to the actual juice that is inside the bottle. So that's my take on it. So, Sebastian, what would you say about this topic?
First of all, very interesting viewpoints. I again learned something, so thank you very much for that. So first of all, I think being profit oriented is per se a good thing, because you also need to make a living. And for me, having a deep rooted purpose for the good, combined also to be able to make a living, is something good, and is actually something sustainable. So I think there, and honestly speaking, I think we are mainly only talking about 1 or 2% of the market who actually care about. So most of, if you see like where I am, the mass, even like the luxury brands like Sergov and all these kind of brands are marketed duty free and stuff. People couldn't care less, but in the end they care about the flanker, and also this kind of brand equity that they soak up with using one of their fragrance. And it's nothing bad about that, because how is fragrance different to your pair of on sneakers that you buy and that are made for like $6 somewhere in Vietnam or the US? So I think there is like the US fragrance is not really an exception. I think there are certain characteristics what you can look for, and for me this was always the fact that when you have either a medium or forum connecting with perfumers like new niche, or you have an in-house perfumer, it is always quite a good sign. Because what I also learned specifically working with independent perfumers is that they would rarely compromise on their view of the world when it comes to picking certain ingredients. And when we are speaking about picking certain ingredients, then you very quickly reach the point, is this scalable on a global scale? So very often we talk about ingredients where you have like certain shortages, where you have to wait in order to create a new batch, or the new batch smells different compared to the batch before, which is not acceptable if you're looking onto a global scale, or when you also have the audacity to create a fragrance that is not tied towards gender or seasons or trends like matcha or pistachio. Or I mean, when I read pistachio or matcha on a fragrance, I mean, it's like, for me, it's like I don't even need to smell that, because
it's game over for me.
Yeah. It's like it's a big red flag next to okay, I've seen the flanker like 8 times already, and that's just the only innovation. So there are certain hints, but again, there is a market for that, so it's completely fine for these people. But I think and I've read that with Julia from Elevated Classics, and there were 2 takeaways in her manifesto, which I really liked. So first of all, she said, just because you are a small independent or artisan brand, you are not per definition more ethical than other brands, which really stuck with me, because I asked myself, like, even though I couldn't imagine doing something else in my life, and I dedicate my life and my acting to being of help to independent perfumers, I can't tell you if the ylang ylang that Chester used, or like the Bengal pepper, was not ethically sourced or not, because this is just like out of my capacity. So when I read that, I thought, yeah, well, even I deeply believe in my mission, I can't tell you according to the value chain till the last point that I'm more ethical than someone else is doing. So that was the one aspect where I thought, okay, this is really something to think about, that just because you're small independent does not mean that you're per definition on a better track. And the other aspect that she mentioned is that transparency in marketing is the new gold. And I think she used the example of Matière Première, which has like really a moment globally with opening basically shops on a daily or weekly basis all over the globe, with having what's his name? The in-house perfumer, I forgot his name.
Is it I might be wrong, Aurélien Guichard?
Yeah, yes. It's I mean, he's also creating for other brands, but he's also like the in-house perfumer. They have their tuberose fields and all that kind of stuff. And they are like the way how they present themselves. Also, if you're following the Instagram feed, you feel that you are looking over the shoulder of them when they are creating. I mean, you see the face. You even see their fields, their tuberose fields, and I don't know what else they have. So tuberose and another ingredient. Their shops are created a little bit like labs in itself, and she used that as the poster child for this new transparency marketing label, where I think she has a good argument that more and more customers are asking for it, not like what are the notes, but also actively asking, okay, who actually made the perfume, or are there real ingredients in there, or are there only certain notes or codes? So they get into the shop and are much more educated, which of course puts retail also under pressure to educate the sales stuff there. And I think that is really, really good what is happening. But at the same time, as I said before, it's mainly only 2 or 3%. It's growing, but like the mass couldn't care less that because they see the qualities in a fragrance more functional, more for the mood. And I think this conversation that we are having is more for like this bubble we are in. But at least it's growing, and the appetite to know what is basically in is definitely growing. And I think that's a good sign.
Yeah. Yeah, the target audience for these conversations is that bubble. So yeah, for sure, you have identified that. And I'm also thinking about who I might want to have as a guest for the next episode. I may ask a certain someone because I've been appreciating their insight and what they've been sharing online. So, elevated classics.
You gotta tell us.
He just he just
Or
he
not?
just
No?
he just mentioned it.
Just
It's all,
just gave it away. I mean, I was hinting at
Oh
it,
my
but
God! Oh,
yeah.
I would like to ask
Yeah.
her and see if she'd be interested. I think it would be a great conversation.
That's
Um,
also I mean, I was completely obsessed listening to the interviews that she has conducted also on YouTube, not drawing away your listeners to her, but I think it's like mutually in preference. Her interview with Antoine Lee was just exceptional, and the way how he basically just described that in-house perfumers are just better technicians. Like this is like, I can't get it out of my head. So it would be a brilliant guest. I would be highly in favor. Yes.
I'll be getting in touch. My last question for the last 15 minutes or so, and it's the one that everybody's asking. I was hinting at it earlier. AI, AI. What are your thoughts on AI and its role in perfume? And I'm not only speaking in terms of composing perfume and that whole process, but just in advertising and marketing and everything. I'll start off with you, Chester, and get your thoughts on that.
ooh,
I have some good ones for this episode, right?
it is. Well, I mean, there's good things and bad things. That's like a general answer, I would say. But like I see, for instance, AI generated images on Instagram feeds, for instance, and they're good looking. I'm like, yeah, it's a nice image. It's really reflects. If I know the perfume, at least, then I can say, oh, it really reflects the scent or the ambience of the perfume. And sometimes you can tell that whoever did it has put some thought maybe in the prompt or whatever
Mhm.
thing they did after that image came up. But then sometimes I see things, I'm like, but that like an amateur photo would have been better because it's such a weird image.
Right. Yeah.
So you can use it in a really nice way, or you can like make the brand or the bottle just look worse. I don't know. I think with AI in perfumery, so we're not talking about creation. Then we're more like about marketing and advertising. Well, you were speaking about AI in text. I find that actually more disturbing than AI in image.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because at least with an image, if you don't mind if I'm interjecting here,
Oh no.
the way that I look at it with AI imagery is that it all depends on who is in charge of the input. Okay. So you have somebody who already has a vision and they're creative and they want a tool to just help facilitate their vision. I think
Yeah.
that AI, if they're already creative and they're doing most of the work, is a great way of getting to their goal, if you know what I mean, helping to facilitate that. But the problem is with AI is the accessibility from people who, and let's just face it, they're not particularly creative. They're not opting to work with creative people. They're not working to collaborate with people who maybe can help, materialize that creative vision. They go for it anyways, and what they do is they take the AI and they input as much of what they want but with little direction, and allow the AI to generate something. And I think that there are those who can tell the difference, where it's like, I can tell a creative person was behind this final product. There is some human creative element to it, even though there's been the assistance of AI, right? But then you see some other stuff and it's like, this is just putting in some sort of phrase or some sort of words and letting the AI do the work for them. And I think that's where I take issue. And I see a lot of it. I see a lot of it in visual stuff. And the visual stuff, it's like, I think a lot of people can kind of tell a little bit more, and they'll look at it and they're just something that's just not right. The uncanny valley, as they call it. Now, the problem that I have with text, and this I'm speaking as somebody who's a writer, is that AI, these large language models, they're all trained on the way that people write, but there is no voice. So it is just regurgitating information based on all the information that it's drawn from the way that humans write, all that stuff within its disposal, and then just regurgitating it. And I find it really deceptive when people use that. And I really just don't. I don't like the direction it's going. Is it that we shouldn't be using it at all for the written word? That's arguable. But the problem is, just like with the imagery stuff, is that people are relying on the tool to do the work. They're abusing the tool, essentially, rather than using it. And I think we're just seeing way too much abuse of these tools rather than a responsible and honest use of them. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Sebastian, what do you think?
I like that you picked up on the fact of AI slop in written text. That I just read a comment on X by, I'm not on X, but it was posted there by Paul Graham, who basically said that whenever people recognize, okay, and you can recognize it in the first 5 or 6 words, that this is like because no one would, there is no voice, as you say. People switch off and they don't read it. I mean, you can see it by our overcrowded inboxes. This kind of like people don't care anymore. It's just like noise. The signal gets less and the noise gets bigger. So I think everything when it comes to that gets really annoying if it's comments under posts on social media that are AI generated or like in an email whatsoever. But yeah, I'm also with Chester that it highly depends on the use case. As New Niche wants to support independent perfumery and to really treat perfumery as a cultural medium, I'm very critical of what is happening with Osmo AI, where basically the value proposition is now you can create and launch a fragrance within 4 weeks, where I'm asking myself, well, is this really the problem with like the lowering barriers that we anyway have, where everyone can create a fragrance? Is this really the problem that you really want to solve? So that is something I've been following, and which also took me quite some time to make my opinion on that. But everything that also works against the mission and vision that I have for new niche. I'm very, very critical of that. Unfortunately, I'm not very experienced or knowledgeable how the workflows are of staff perfumers with Givaudan, IFF, Symrise, Takasago, Manet, etc. I heard some quite good things, but again, that is also the system they are caught in, because in the end they are technicians, and when brands arrive and say, dear perfumer, you can be creative as possible, creative as you want, but $50 the kilogram. Of course, AI can be of great value to maximize on the price tag that is mentioned on the brief. But this is something I'm very, very critical about, because if you I mean, and 90 I mean, everyone can call him or herself as a perfumer, but if you look at people who go to the elite schools, Grass Institute of Perfumery or ISIPCA, everyone dreams of landing a job with the big composition houses. And if you see what AI is doing there, that and is doing like globally, that entry jobs are really at risk because AI can take that over. It's a very good question what it actually does. I mean, you see that already with software engineers. 5 years ago, it was the toughest job to get a software engineer, and nowadays you can as a junior software engineer, it's very hard to land a job. And I think you can draw at least some inspiration from that, or an analogy when it comes to being a junior perfumer trying to land a job when AI basically can could do your job. So this is something where I'm very, very skeptical about. But in the end, if you're looking, they are all public. It's all about shareholder value. They couldn't care less about being a perfumer and honoring the craft, because in the end it's about making the shareholders happy and paying dividends. And so that is what I'm mostly concerned about. At the same time, I confess, I'm basically building new niche at night for the last two years. I was very close to burnout like twice, but I'm so obsessed with making it happen. And without AI, I need to say I wouldn't be there where I am right now. So I am now able to prompt a website without having any coding skills and connecting it with my Shopify environment. Without that, I couldn't act upon my calling, which new niche is. And therefore I'm very, very grateful for the tools. But I couldn't agree more with the two of you. They have to be used in a right way, and if they are not used in a right and very conscious way to just spread noise, it's rather doing harm for the world and not doing good for the world.
Yeah, very well said. A very measured response on that, which is why I don't really think that I would want to be in that camp who is anti-AI in all regards. It's just I'm very cautious about it. I'm very cautious that it ends up in the wrong hands. It ends up in the hands of dishonest and deceptive and people with not so great intentions. And that's on all. I mean, we can get into things way outside of perfumery if we're talking about that, of course. But even with it just in the framework of perfumery as a business and as a livelihood, there are some valid concerns that I have. Grunt work, having something help you out with things that would normally take up so much time, so much energy, I can see the pros and cons with that, because it can help, but then it can also, people with entry-level jobs are at risk. So there's a lot, it's quite a quandary right now as we see it accelerating at a rapid pace. It's not slowing down. So but I really do appreciate both of you in answering that question, because it's
rather
really
exciting as well to witness, though.
I beg your pardon?
I think it's rather exciting. I mean, even with the bad and the good, I think it's
true.
It's very, exciting and interesting to see what's happening.
Yeah, and scary, but also exciting, promising. Maybe, you know what? I have a partner who has cancer. Maybe we will see that AI can help with cancer patients to prevent, keep cancer at bay, or even stamp it out, even for people who have metastasized cancer. So there are a lot of things that I'm hopeful about as well. So it's good to highlight that, definitely, as well. Well, this has been a really great conversation. I can't believe it's already 2 hours. We've had a lot of stuff that we covered here.
Nice.
do stick around. Just stay backstage. We can do sort of a follow-up chat. And thank you, Sebastian, for inspiring me on my next guest, who I didn't have line up, and just inspiring me in general. I mean, you've provided a lot of insight and some great thoughts here. And as always, Chester, you're in my heart. I mean, I think the world of you. So it's just wonderful to have you back, and I hope we
Thank
can
you.
have
It was
another
my pleasure.
conversation soon. Great. So we're at the 2-hour mark. We're gonna let the theme music play out, and we're gonna go backstage. We don't have any more comments here, but there's gonna be plenty of people who are gonna be watching in the playback on the archives. So thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Be well, and I will see you all in 1 month here. Take care.